The story begins with something like a whirlpool that suddenly appears in the world. It happened 40 years ago when 3 mysterious seeds fell to Earth. The seeds became huge Babel towers, and from within the Tower of Babel, countless monsters poured out. The surface turned into a sea of fire in an instant. When half of the world was destroyed, they appeared. Chosen beings who oppose the monsters are those who made contracts with heroic spirits and fought against the monsters. They were called as heroes. 40 years had passed, monsters were still rampant. At the present time, there was an emergency announcement in the city that an E-class monster, Green Vager, was escaping the hero's pursuit. Civilians were advised to quickly evacuate to the nearest shelter. Our main protagonist, Jae-ha, was on his way home, but he was suddenly attacked by the monster using a steel bar. He was just a 23-year-old ordinary guy, a lowly civilian. He turned around and saw the monster behind him. He proclaimed that the monster who dared to attack him wasn't just an ordinary E-class monster. He observes that this vager is a clever creature with a strong survival instinct. He knew that this monster intended to pierce his body with the steel bar. While he was staring at the monster, someone was talking from his belly, calling him a pathetic fool for being so slow. Jae-ha was insulted since he always heard this voice in a situation like this. The guy said that Jae-ha was slower than a wounded beast. The guy inside his bellow can see everything that happened in front of him. This guy believes that the monster used tools to attack Jae-ha to block his retreat. This guy is the Demon King, Chenmao, a guy who occupies his belly. As per Chenmao, the monster is planning to trap Jae-ha within its domain and swallow him whole in one go. I am not a hero, I'm a civilian. If I die, you die too, Jae-ha angrily said. He then heard Chenmao declare to teach him how to fight. He ordered Jae-ha to look up to him and told him to always be respectful and reverent until he left his body. At the same time, the monster grabbed another steel bar, and upon his action, Chenmao immediately commanded Jae-ha to bow. Jae-ha saw the steel bar thrown toward him by the monster. At first, he was confused with Chenmao's order, but then he followed it and successfully avoided the steel bar. The monster leaps and Jae-ha hears Chenmao ordering him to twist his body to the right. He immediately twisted his body to the right despite that he was so scared. He then rose and checked if he really dodged the monster's attack. Chenmao then informed him that the monster's claw was stuck on the ground, which is why it could not attack him for a moment, so they could now continue their conversation. While Chenmao was discussing, Jae-ha was flustered thinking how he swallowed Chenmao. Yesterday was supposed to be Jae-ha's day off, but he still went outside to eat brunch before doing his work. He was dumbfounded, realizing that he needed to leave for a business trip instead of taking his day off. On the same day, early in the morning, he woke up and at the same time, he received a call from his team leader of the company he was working, asking him if he still remembered the dungeon in Imzal country where there was a strange ore that was discovered. Jae-ha then answered yes, and his team leader explained to him that their investigation team and the research department were in the United States right now and the team needed his help. Jae-ha tried to resist by saying that it was his first day of vacation, but then the team leader said that they really needed his help. The call ended and Jae-ha didn't try to argue. During his meal, he was complaining but at the same time accepted that he didn't have a choice since he was the only one left in the country. While he was talking to himself, he suddenly heard a news on the television about the 40 years of war. The reporter said that the dreadful war is still ongoing, and they believed that this tiresome war might finally come to an end if only a 10-star hero would appear. To become a high-ranking hero, they needed a certain amount of synergy, and only heroic spirits who had a strong presence in life could bond with them. However, the contract with the heroic spirits should be made between the ages of 15 and 17. After listening to the news, Jae-ha stares at his hand thinking that he wouldn't even hope for a 10-star if only his lost synergy would return. He suddenly stood with anger, punching the table, and accepted the fact that the past should be in the past. To restore his synergy, he has even served as a special civilian sergeant on the front line. No matter how high his synergy was once, now they mean nothing to him. Meanwhile, he went to the Imzal country, a D-class mineral dungeon. The researcher was glad to see him finally come as he had waited for so long. The researcher also told him to forget the formalities and just go straight to the dungeon. They both headed inside with Jae-ha carrying the tools he had brought with him. As they headed inside the tunnel, it was so dark. But then, there was something shimmering, and he knew this was the newly discovered ore. They went closer to the ore and Jae-ha noticed that the ore looked just like dry wood. The research then said that it is the reason why they call it black wood. Jae-ha then asked the researcher about the ore's strength, and according to the researcher, it breaks with a light punch but it hardens as it absorbs light. Jae-ha held it while saying that this was the first time he had seen such an ore creating light instead of heat, and he realized why his team leader, the one who called early in the morning, was excited. According to the researcher, they are testing to see how strong the ore can get, and he informed Jae-ha that he will know the result once they are out. Jae-ha was still staring at the ore and he didn't think he had seen such ore even in a B-class mineral dungeon. He was sweating at this time, and together with it was the juice that came from the ore and dropped on the ground. After a few minutes, he successfully got the ore safely and put it in his case. He was so happy to find the ore in a D-class dungeon. He stretched his body while saying that if this goes wrong, the team leader will go berserk. As he stared at the ceiling, he saw a crack making him panic. The ground was also shattering until a magic circle appeared. The first thing that comes to his mind is that this circle is a summoning circle. But then, he cannot think of a reason why it appeared all of a sudden. The circle creates light and noise, and it vibrates. Lightning appeared and struck Jae-ha's body, making him scream in agony. A dark aura also appeared. His eyes become dark. He saw a small circle above him. He didn't know what it was, but then it suddenly entered his mouth, and he unintentionally swallowed it. Before he swallowed it, he was thinking that if the circle was a summoning circle for a heroic spirit, the thing he swallowed must be a heroic spirit. The moment he completely swallowed it, some memories were shared with him. In a certain memory, several men uttered together, "O great and glorious one to inherit the accomplishments of Shinkai-o, the only one in this world." Jae-ha held it on the wall, believing that the memory he had just seen was a memory from the heroic spirit's life. It definitely mentioned Shinkai-o in the memory, the capital of the former imperial Japanese puppet state of Manchukuo. And the Shinkai-o he knew was Chunma's Shinkai-o, the heavenly demon. While he was thinking, he then heard a voice from his belly asking where he was and stated that he was just eaten the food of the Eastern Three Weirdos a moment ago. Jae-ha was startled and immediately looked at his belly. Chunma uttered Jae-ha's name as he also got Jae-ha's memories. But then, he didn't know anyone with the name Jae-ha, so he got confused why he had some memories of him. He was complaining that it was too dark, so he asked to turn on the lights. Jae-ha stood still, and he was in disbelief. A screen suddenly appeared right in front of him saying that one mind, one body. If one person dies, one soul dies. If one soul dies, one person dies. Chunma also saw the system and he was also clueless. The next day, Jae-ha immediately went to the Heroic Spirit Examination System, a place where those contracted with heroic spirits come to check their synergy point changes. He found out that his synergy points came out as 0, which is why they find it strange. The examiner then told him that it seemed like the results might be incorrect, so they will prepare for Jae-ha to take the test again. But then, Jae-ha refused to do it again on the same day. He stood and told the examiner that he would come back again another time. He then leaves while thinking that the thing inside his belly might not a heroic spirit since his synergy points are still the same. Chunma suddenly spoke, telling him that he was alive. As per Chunma, he saw a memory from Jae-ha that heroes in this world borrow the power of the dead. But then, he has not died yet. He's completely alive. Technically, you're neither dead nor alive, right? So what exactly do you do from inside my belly? Jae-ha asked. Since yesterday, a spirit calling itself Chunma has been inside his belly, making him crazy. Chunma claims to be the leader of a sect not mentioned in any historical records. According to Chunma, he can see the outside through Jae-ha's eyes and even taste the food Jae-ha eats. He can also sense the energy or Kai flowing through Jae-ha's body. By refining the Kai energy, he believes that Jae-ha can transform it into power, and if Jae-ha would use martial arts, he believes Jae-ha would gain the strength to cut through mountains. Jae-ha didn't believe anything Chunma said. He said that Chunma's words were too absurd for an ordinary civilian with no synergy points. Chunma then told him that he must believe him in order to survive. Chunma ordered him to look at the sky, and at first, he didn't see anything. But then, he heard an emergency announcement declaring that an E-class monster green vager was fleeing from the pursuit of the heroes, and civilians were asked to evacuate as soon as possible to the nearest shelter. After hearing the announcement, Jae-ha then saw the monster above the building roaring so loud. Jae-ha was shocked upon seeing it. However, he was aware that it is common for monsters to escape from dungeons, and surely, heroes were the ones who would handle them. Still, Chunma warned him to be careful. The monster continued roaring and it sighted the old man behind Jae-ha. At the same time, Chunma proclaimed that no beast would let a weaker prey escape. The monster then jumped from the building, and Jae-ha then slightly looked at his back as he noticed that the monster is aiming at the old man behind him. He then rushed to the old man, but then the monster instantly appeared behind the old man at a fast speed. The monster swung its claw to kill the old man, but luckily, Jae-ha was able to move the old man away and dodged its attack. The monster strongly stomped on the ground the moment it was shot on its back by an inspector. The inspector assisted the old man to stand to get him away from the place. Jae-ha then tells the inspector to take a chance to get to the shelter while he distracts the monster. He then looked back to the monster while asking Chinmay if he was aware this incident would happen. Before he got an answer, the monster swung its claw once more, but Jae-ha was confident since he knew Green Vager's pattern to some extent. However, the monster was able to hit him, causing him to roll over on the ground upside down. He then realizes that the monster is too fast. Chinmay then said that Jae-ha cannot even touch Green Vager with his current skill, let alone its shadow. He slid away from the monster and he felt so much pain. He then slowly rises while telling himself that it's not the time for him to be sarcastic. He looked at the patrol, concluding that the distance between him and the shelter was roughly 70 meters, so he immediately rushed to escape and survive. The monster saw him running, and that is the time when it destroyed a steel and got one and threw it toward him. Jae-ha got almost hit. It blocked his escape route, so he stopped running, complaining that the monster wasn't just an ordinary E-class monster. Pathetic fool. How many grubs have you eaten to be so slow? Now that I see, you're slower than a wounded beast, Chinmay said. This was also the time he gave knowledge to Jae-ha that the monster was planning to trap him within its domain and swallow him whole in one go. Jae-ha reminded him that they would die together since he was just a civilian, so Chinmay decided to teach Jae-ha. But Jae-ha should always be respectful and reverent until Chinmay left his body. Chinmay ordered Jae-ha to bow, and when Jae-ha followed, he realized that he avoided the monster's attack. When the monster leaped, Jae-ha followed Chinmay's order to twist his body to the right, and with that, he was able to dodge the monster's attack for the second time. Jae-ha stares at his hand and he cannot believe that he survived. And because of Chinmay's help, he was thinking that Chinmay could help him become strong even if he's not a heroic spirit. He then agreed to look up, respect, and revere Chinmay. Chinmay then smiled and proclaimed to teach Jae-ha a movement that suited him. The monster was staring at him, roaring in anger, but Jae-ha this time was more confident, knowing that Chinmay would help him. He stares at the monster while listening to Chinmay informing him that the movement he will practice is called the 5-element sealing step, and they will start with the 3 steps. Since it would be Jae-ha's first time practicing the step, Chinmay asked him to focus entirely on feeling the energy and surrendering his body to it, a place unreachable by humans, the energy that splits the water and settles into the earth. Chinmay uttered. During the process, a cold energy rises in the fingertips of Jae-ha, but somehow cold yet a burning sensation. Chinmay continued talking. Seemed like he was calling someone to always be present around them with a power that humans cannot covet, with the sensation of the 5 elements where the energy and the surrounding energy become one. At this point, Jae-ha feels an unknown energy moves his body. He also felt a feeling unfamiliar yet as natural as breathing. Chinmay then told him that it is the art of movement in unity with the spirit, the 5-element imprint step. The monster this time charged at Jae-ha, and Jae-ha also charged at the monster using the power he possessed. The monster runs so fast toward Jae-ha. It clenched its fist, planning to punch Jae-ha. Jae-ha jumped, making the ground shattered. He reached higher than the monster and passed behind it. He grits his teeth as he lands on the car while hearing Chinmay's voice telling him that he will only stumble even if he will teach him the incantations directly. The monster turned its head around and it was mad at the fact that Jae-ha avoided its attack again. He stares at his hand and he is impressed with his movement. Chinmay then declared that they would start the 4th step. But then, Jae-ha asked if the power he possessed by owned by Chinmay. Is this your power? He asked, and Chinmay then replied, my power. The 5 elements imprint step is a technique I mastered at the age of 5. And yet, after I personally taught you the incantations, you claim it's your power after all your blundering. According to Chinmay, incantations are merely a means to help gather energy. The vessel that holds that power is ultimately Jae-ha's own body. Jae-ha then said that his body cannot contain the power of spirits. He lost all his aptitude ratings during his childhood, which means he's a civilian without the power to fight monsters. He was so sad upon the news, but then he didn't have a choice but to accept it. Now, he concludes that the power that was moving in his body right now belonged to Chinmay, not his. Chinmay then suddenly calls him a pathetic fool for not knowing that the 5 elements are a power that comes from nature, and humans are also a part of that nature. In the first place, if a human properly trains, there's no need to borrow such powers as spirits or whatever. The power that Jae-ha's body is feeling now is awakened by the 5 elements imprint step. It's solely his own sensation, so he must trust what his body feels. Right now, Jae-ha realizes that it is not to the spirit but solely his sensation. After graduating from high school, he enlisted as a frontline, special private sergeant. It was because he couldn't give up the hope of becoming a hero and wanted to regain his aptitude rating. though he didn't find it at that time. If, even without the power of spirits, he's given the power to fight monsters. Right now, the monster tried to attack him again, but he immediately dodged while thinking that he could become a hero with the current power he had. He trusted his sensation, making him create a strong blow of power. The monster at the same time grabbed a car and lifted it up, aiming to hit Jae-ha. The monster then threw the car toward Jae-ha, but then Jae-ha grabbed the opportunity by jumping into the car and heading toward the monster, thinking that he could surely become a hero with the heavenly demon's help. Otherwise, without an aptitude rating, he knew he couldn't have faced such a monster and wouldn't have stood a chance. When he reached the monster's eye, he then kicked it. The monster was in pain, screaming in agony, and fortunately fell to the ground. Jae-ha stares at the monster, but he suddenly feels pain in his leg. He screamed in pain, and seeing his painful knee made Chenma wonder what was wrong with his body. Chenma teases him that he's weaker than Chenma's 5-year-old self. Unfortunately, the monster suddenly rises. Jae-ha then realizes that the fight isn't over yet. But then, Chenma told him to stop making a face since everything was over. It turned out that Chenma saw a man holding a gun, aiming at the monster. The guy shoots and insta-killed the E-class monster. Nearby, a lady was taking a photo claiming that there was a hero. The monster at this moment fell on the ground lifeless. The lady still taking pictures of the hero, and the hero is so proud after killing the monster. The crowd was so happy to see the monster eliminated by the hero. The hero was waving his hand to the people while the people cheered for him. On the other hand, no one was proud of what Jae-ha did. He was assisted to enter the ambulance and receive treatment. That so-called hero, you're much later than I expected. What's there to be proud of, raising your hand like that? Chenma stated. Jae-ha then thanked him that he survived, but then, Chenma told him that he was better than the hero who interfered. Chenma also told him that the hero who killed the monster has no skills at first glance, and might just write as a training dummy at their school. I thought the heavenly demon was full of himself. And your voice is annoying too, Jae-ha said. Chenma got annoyed and said that he should have let Jae-ha die earlier. Jae-ha then stated that he now confirmed that everything that happened to him was real, including the memory of Chenma that was shared with him. Perhaps, he believes that the heavenly demon is stronger than all the heroes he has admired, just like a powerful god. If it is really the heavenly demon, he believes that he will reach new heights. So you're saying now that my voice is unlucky? Chenma suddenly said. Jae-ha then said that he meant to say that he had just now realized the true majesty of the heavenly demon. Meanwhile, in the hospital where Jae-ha was treated, the old man he saved was also in the same hospital, giving thanks to him for saving his life. Right now, Jae-ha is using crutches since his leg is still in pain. The old man was so grateful, saying that he almost died without seeing his granddaughter. The old man bowed his head while giving thanks to Jae-ha, but Jae-ha asked him to raise his head as he felt that he didn't deserve the appreciation. Besides, he knew in himself that he also stepped in to save himself as well. After all the guidance I've provided, you're the one receiving all the praise, Chenma stated with crossed arms. And here's his complaints, wanting Jae-ha to laugh, but he holds in since he believes the old man might think he's crazy if he laughs without any reason. At this moment, while Jae-ha was talking with the old man, there were two men watching a trending video. At the same time, the old man's granddaughter came with tears in her eyes. The kid immediately hugged her grandfather, and the grandpa then said that his granddaughter came all the way to the hospital worried about him. He then told the lady not to worry since he was now perfectly fine and safe. He also wiped his granddaughter's tears. The kid then showed a video to Jae-ha saying that she saw him. Surprisingly, she claims that Jae-ha is the hero from the YouTube video. Jae-ha was confused, but when he saw a video, he then found out that someone had taken a video of him fighting the monsters earlier. The child proclaimed that Jae-ha was the one who saved her grandfather. All his movement was seen on the video, which is why the little girl and the old man bowed down and thanked him. The two men who were watching a video then also realized that the video they were watching was the hero who fought the E-class monster. They then clapped their hands, including the old man and the kid, while saying that Jae-ha is truly a hero with remarkable courage. At this moment, Jae-ha feels awkward since he isn't used to being acknowledged. But of course, a part of him feels a bit rewarding. I've never seen those who talk big actually repay their debts, Chenma said. Jae-ha then teases Chenma that he has been betrayed a lot. Chenma then grits his teeth out of annoyance, but he doesn't dare to create any issue at all. In the middle of the night, Jae-ha was peacefully sleeping, but he was dreaming about the promise he made to his mother to become a splendid hero. He immediately woke up and held his chest, realizing that he was just dreaming. Up until now, he still cannot believe that he fought against the green vager all by himself. He suddenly calls the heavenly demon to ask one question. Can I also learn martial arts? He asked, and Chenma replied, do you think you learned the 5 elements in print step just for show? You've already learned martial arts. As a child, Jae-ha's aptitude rating disappeared, and at 20 he survived a brush with death on the front lines. But he knew he can't never be a hero, so he decided to give up. An aptitude rating once lost does not return. He thought there was no hope left. Now, he has one request for the heavenly demon, and he concludes that this might be his last chance to become a hero. He put down his feet on the ground while asking Chenma to teach him martial arts. At the same time, the aura of his current power emerges, and Chenma's chest is beating. Chenma believes that it was originally Jae-ha's heart. I intended to teach you self-defense since it would be troublesome if you died, Chenma stated. But then, Jae-ha replied that he needed to learn something stronger. He stood and proclaimed that he must become a hero. He held the crutches while informing Chenma that he had a promise to keep, a promise worth risking his life for. Then, Jae-ha was shocked when Chenma knew that the promise he was referring to was the one with his deceased parents, and Chenma asked him what that promise had to do with him. Right now, Jae-ha discovered that Chenma also shares his memories, and he was hoping that his past wasn't a reason for the heavenly demon to teach him martial arts. He told Chenma that becoming a hero could be the for Chenma to return to his original world. Chenma then asked why, and Jae-ha replied that he believed all this started because of the summoning circle, and theories related to the summoning circle are in the military academy, or specialized research institute. Chenma then asked if becoming a hero was the qualification to enter both places. Jae-ha then said he was not certain, but then it was the only method that came to his mind. Teaching you to the level of entering the military academy is a very easy task for me. However, if you want power beyond that, power to keep your old promise, then bring me a clue written about how you and I can return to our original forms, Chenma stated. But Jae-ha doesn't know what to say. Chenma then added that if Jae-ha neglect their connection after achieving his goal, there will be no way later on. For one clue, he's willing to give Jae-ha one ascendant martial art. Jae-ha suddenly smiled, thinking that Jae-ha was trying to secure trust. Alright, I will stake everything to find the clue that will send the heavenly demon back, he said. A man's word is his bond. They both uttered together. Jae-ha then microwaved food since he got hungry. He then gets it after a minute and heads back to the table. Chenma then asked him what would happen since he isn't a spirit, while the military academy requires a hero's rank that has a contract with a spirit. Jae-ha then replied that proof of being a spirit isn't that important. The most important is the rank that allows entry into the military academy. Chenma then remembered that it needed 2 stars. According to Jae-ha, there aren't many students under 18 with a 2-star rank, so a 2-star should be sufficient. 3-star would mean admission as the top student. Chenma then confidently said that he would aim for the 3-star. I think so, too. Given my age, I'll need a more attractive rank. The rank assessment is in November, with 6 months left. Do you think a 3-star is possible? Jae-ha asked. While he was eating, Chenma also tasted the food he ate. Jae-ha then proclaimed that with the king of martial arts by his side, nothing is impossible. After eating, Chenma was so full. He then told Jae-ha that he had looked into ways to quickly develop Jae-ha's dull body, and he had concluded that mixing righteous Kai and demonic Kai was the way to go. According to him, there's righteous Kai, neutral Kai, and demonic Kai in this world. Righteous Kai builds up slowly but solidly, leading to higher realms. Demonic Kai is a quick method to reach a certain realm in a short period. And if Jae-ha would learn both, he believes that Jae-ha will either become a cripple or a madman. Are you trying to turn me into a madman now? Jae-ha asked while heading back to his bed. He then sat on the bed while Chenma questioned him about what he would gain from turning him into a madman. Chenma then orders him to sit in the lotus position as he teaches him a new heart method that cunningly mixes the 2 powers. As per Chenma, this heart method shall be known as the black and white heart method. Jae-ha leans on his pillow while wondering what the black and white heart method is. He also asked Chenma if he could really do it. And as per Chenma, it's not a matter of can, but must. Sit in a lotus position. I will teach you the hand seals first. Memorize them without missing a single beat, Chenma said. Jae-ha tried to complain about his painful legs, but then Chenma commanded him to lie down instead. Jae-ha then followed Chenma's instruction, but then Chenma got annoyed, telling him not to spread his arms and place them respectfully to his stomach in the right measure. Jae-ha said he understood, then Chenma asked him to close his eyes. Of course, Jae-ha followed and heard Chenma informing him that this hand seal must be engraved not only in his memory, but also in his body and mind. After a minute, Jae-ha senses that only dark surrounds him. At the same time, Chenma started enchanting words using a different language. At this moment, Jae-ha feels that he knows where to walk despite that his eyes are closed. As per Chenma, to engrave the hand seal in his mind and body means that the hand seal will become mind and body. Jae-ha started walking and he could feel the end of his path lies the end of the hand seal. Chenma then informed him that the hand seal would serve as a vessel to contain the energy in his body that would form a danchan. A golden flame emerges, entering his body and completely vanishes. Jae-ha then opened his eyes and raised his upper body. He felt a slight sting just now and he was sure something had settled in his stomach. Jae-ha then informed him that it was the black and white heart method. He added that the heart method has taken its place within Jae-ha. This heart method possesses two properties. First, the nature of absorbing energy is derived from demonic cultivation. In other words, it absorbs magical power from monsters with dark attributes. Is that okay? Magical power is a fatal energy to humans. Jae-ha asked. Chenma, then it is not okay and everyone who tries it becomes a madman. Jae-ha got scared upon hearing it. Then, Chenma added that with the second property of the black and white heart method, the nature of righteous cultivation purifies the magical power into pure energy. Jae-ha then concludes that pure energy becomes his inner strength. To achieve it, he believes he needs to find a monster with dark attributes. Chenma then asked if there was a way to get one. According to Jae-ha, there is a laboratory at the Datsreal company that researches monsters. However, due to the unique nature of dark attribute monsters, it's not easy to obtain their corpses. If they're exposed to a certain amount of light, not even a piece of the corpse will remain, it just melts away. While he was explaining, he received a call from the president of Datsreal company, Kang Jin-ho. Of course, if you're willing to pay the right price, you can get as many as you want. Jae-ha added while staring at his phone. 1 week later, Jae-ha went back to the company he was working, which was the company he mentioned, Datsreal company. His leg still had a bandage. He was at his working table, facing his computer, complaining that his task was a week's worth of overdue work. His TL suddenly came, eating a sandwich, carrying a blue box while calling Jae-ha's name. Team leader, did you finish your trip to America well? Jae-ha asked. His team leader put the blue box on his table. It has a name which was Bacchus D according to the team leader, even though the property of absorbing light from the black wood is similar to that of dark attribute monsters. And to study that relationship, just one is enough. Well, I'm not sure, are there many corpses? Jae-ha asked. And his team leader replied, no less than 30. That's right, 30. The team leader moved closer to Jae-ha's face while saying that it was 1 billion altogether. And he was annoyed that Jae-ha really didn't know anything. Jae-ha was called to the president's office to have a discussion. He then told the president that dark attribute monsters could oxidize during research. He informed the president that the team leader mentioned it, and if they get the secret of the black wood, regaining the top spot in the industry will not be a dream. After having a discussion with the president, Jae-ha wore his coat, carried the box, and headed to the forensic team because of his team leader's order. His team leader already informed the forensic team that they originally requested just one specimen, which is why he asked him to check the corpse and give the big cast to the forensic team leader. While Jae-ha was on his way, he realized that his team leader was more capable of handling situations than he thought. He then swiped his ID card on the small screen and the door then opened. He saw the people working. There are people busy with some paperwork, and some are busy with research. Luckily, the team leader of forensics saw Jae-ha had arrived. Jae-ha then went to him and greeted him, then handed the blue box. Big Cass, huh? As expected, there's no one with as much sense as Deputy Min in the investigation team, the forensic team leader stated. Jae-ha then handed the TL a bottle of energy drink, asking him to drink it and regain some energy drink. The team leader then accepted it and pointed to another room, saying that there was a bunch of corpses left in the room from last night's research. He also added that the autopsy equipment is inside, and he offered help to Jae-ha if Jae-ha cannot do it alone. He and Jae-ha then went to the entrance and the TL opened it using his ID. I'll just take your good intentions, team leader. You should eat as well, Jae-ha said before entering. As the door opened, he saw the dark room. But then, the D-class dark attribute monster corpses gave light to the room. Jae-ha then entered and checked the corpses. As per Chenma, magical power is 1/10 of a living one, but the number is sufficient to accumulate energy in the danchan. He then asked Jae-ha if he had memorized all the incantations. Jae-ha then answered yes, and Chenma told him to focus on creating the seed of power before his leg was fully healed. Jae-ha closed his eyes and remembered the first step to creating the seed, which is to feel the magical energy. Next is to guide the magi through the meridians to settle in the danchan. And the last step is to refine the magic and solidify it into a seed. While in the process, Jae-ha was sweating. His sweat dropped on the ground, making it shattered to pieces. Jae-ha suddenly opened his eyes, so Chenma asked him why he stopped. Did you just hear something break? Jae-ha asked. But then, Chenma said Jae-ha was spitting nonsense since it hadn't been half an hour since he closed his eyes. Jae-ha then informed him that he saw white and energy around him. Chenma was shocked since it was a sign that Jae-ha had already felt and refined the magic. Jae-ha held onto the corpse cylinder while Chunma asked him if he really created it in just 1 minute. He was in disbelief since it is something that normally takes at least a fortnight. He immediately closed his eyes and felt something inside Jae-ha's body. He knew it was the seed, making him shocked. "You felt it, didn't you? Why would something so simple take a fortnight?" Jae-ha said. He then asked Chunma to tell him the next step to take. But then, Chunma was speechless. Jae-ha calls him but he doesn't respond, so Jae-ha is bothered, thinking that he might have done something wrong without him noticing it. Meanwhile, Jae-ha went to the Datsreal company rooftop to discuss something with his TL. It took him just over an hour to absorb all the magical energy. Before absorption, the magic appears as black energy, but after being absorbed, it turns white. Now that the seed has grown considerably, he can feel the power too. It would be great if he could move this power at will, but for now, he can only stare at it. He was staring at his hand and the seed suddenly appeared. His hand clenched without his will and he wondered why. Chunma then said that there are 2 sayings in the world to evaluate a person. One is instinctive and the other is talented. The talented are further divided into 3 types. Among them, those without talent but with good character are called virtuous. And he concludes that Jae-ha is definitely virtuous. However, he noticed that Jae-ha was faster at creating the seed than his first disciple. "Heavenly demon, look at this. When I stimulate the meridians, I can move the power freely," Jae-ha said with excitement. Chunma then asked him when he started doing it and he answered that he only tried it just in case but instantly did it. "Are you mocking me right now?" Chunma said. He was in disbelief since it took his first disciple 3 days to stimulate the meridians and move the power, yet Jae-ha did it in just a few hours, all the way to circulating energy throughout the body. Since Jae-ha did it, he then asked Chunma if the lesson was over for the day. Jae-ha's TL then arrived and apologized for coming late while giving him a can of cola. While Jae-ha opened his cola, his TL suddenly asked when he was going to write his resignation. Jae-ha was dumbfounded since he didn't mention he would resign. His TL then said that he saw on YouTube that he made a contract with a spirit. His TL looked straight at him and admitted that he was jealous and it hurt him. Jae-ha then told him that he had a plan of telling. He was just waiting for a perfect time. His TL then said to forget it since his TL was aware that he wanted to be a hero more than anyone else. According to the TL, everyone in their company knows about it, and since Jae-ha finally came to this, he was hoping that Jae-ha would make sure he would succeed. Jae-ha then gave thanks to him and the TL suddenly grabbed his shoulder and said, "But before that, you have to deal with what you said to the CEO, right?" A few years ago, Jae-ha fought beasts as a member of the front line. He was caught on guard but someone came, telling him to get up. It was the colonel and he was shocked that this guy came to save him. This guy is the Special Civilian Team Frontline, Battalion Commander Kim Panho. He reminded Jae-ha that he joined the frontline to become a hero. The wolves are charging at them. Kim Panho tells Jae-ha that giving up is something he does after he dies. Kim Panho started shooting the wolves but then there was a mad wolf who successfully went closer at him. Jae-ha was worried about him, but then the wolf hit him causing him to fly away together with Jae-ha. Jae-ha dropped his gun beside him but he immediately grabbed it and stood bravely. He then started shooting the wolves while screaming that he didn't have any intention of giving up even in his death. At the present time, Jae-ha went to the F-Class Dark Attribute Dungeon, the dungeon socialization education site. "I didn't expect to get in so quickly," he said, and his comrades heard him so they called him, asking him to hurry up before they could run out of time. Jae-ha then awkwardly laughs and endures the mocking of the people. He believes that there is a limit to the magical energy he can get from a corpse. Besides, it's a dungeon he entered after asking the colonel with difficulty. He continued to walk, following his comrades. If you have enough flash grenades, the Dark Attribute Dungeon is safer than other dungeons. You will follow the support from me and Min Jae-ha. We're going to the training area now, their head said. Jae-ha immediately started training in a few martial arts after resigning. But the more he trains, the more his power just seems to circle around his body without him knowing the reason why. And since he doesn't know the reason, he has to find out himself. While he was walking, there was a black aura of magic behind him. He then stopped and turned his head while thinking that the magical energy in an F-class dungeon was still so strong. He senses that there are 2 enemies on the right side, 5 in front and 3 on the left. "They're coming," he uttered, and their head looked at him with confusion. The wolves then appeared and the head then told everyone to stay back. Jae-ha then clenched his fist and started attacking one wolf. The head also got a gun and aimed at the wolves. One wolf was staring at Jae-ha. But then, Jae-ha was confident since he knew that there were 2 ways to tackle dark attribute monsters. One is to melt them with more light than they can contain. The second is to destroy the core that traps the light. Jae-ha looked behind him since he had a comrade who was very scared. He then told the guy to hide behind him. He then stomped on the ground, making it shattered, creating a hole going to the underground, and he pushed away his comrade. He then fell and saw huge stems on the lower ground. He feels annoyed since falling wasn't his intention, as he only planned to use the hole to trap the wolf. In the lower part, there are a lot of corpses and bones of wolves. Luckily, Jae-ha safely landed on the bodies of the dead wolves. He then said that it seemed the bodies of the beasts cushioned the fall. He also added that it was fortunate for him to have landed safely, but he cannot deny the fact that below was so horrific. At this time, Chunma's tummy suddenly growled. He held his tummy and asked Jae-ha if he would wait for a rescue. If we stay here, we'll either starve, get crushed, or be eaten. It's one of the three. There's definitely a boss in this hidden basement. Jae-ha replied. They then suddenly heard a gunshot. Jae-ha was curious upon hearing it, while Chunma said that they must move as quickly as possible, as he could sense someone ahead who had fallen in this basement just like them. It turned out that it was Jae-ha's lady comrade. There were wolves right in front of her, ready to attack him. Chunma was staring at her while telling Jae-ha that they needed to cooperate with the lady in order to survive. Damn, that's not an option, is it? Jae-ha replied while grabbing a piece of bone. He then ran toward the lady, but then the wolves were growling and charged at the lady. The lady then attacked them with a whip, but there was a wolf jumped toward her and she was about to shoot it with her gun, but before it could strike her with its claw, the wolf was growling in pain. It turned out that Jae-ha appeared and bravely attacked the wolf. He was using the bone to fight, but it got broken by the wolf, so he realizes that this wolf right now is much stronger than the one he fought above. 3 wolves charged at him and the lady then interfered, telling him to get out of the way. She instantly shoots and Jae-ha gets annoyed, telling her that she's firing without aiming. But surprisingly, she was able to hit the wolves altogether. However, the wolves seemed to be unharmed. Jae-ha then instructed the lady to aim for the core, which was in the center of the wolf's abdomen. The lady was stuttering while claiming that she knew it. She then told Jae-ha to watch his back since there was a wolf charging at him from behind. Jae-ha immediately turned around. He then kicked the wolf, but the wolf was still able to bite his waist. The lady then shot the wolf's core. The 3 wolves were now gone to ashes. Chunma then said that the boss was behind these wolves. Now that we know where their core is, we should be fine, the lady said. But then, Jae-ha believes that the real challenge will now start. The lady believes him, but she wants him to hide behind her and asks her to do his job properly as a support. Then, she saw Jae-ha holding his wound on the waist. At this point, something strange started coming out from the ground. It has a dark aura and Jae-ha concludes that this thing was the hidden real boss of the duplex dungeon. A D-class monster, Flower Ent, the real boss of this place. Chunma then mentioned the Sun and Moon Radiant King technique, which was the martial arts he have learned, and he believes this would be a good opportunity to test it. He has taught Jae-ha the true meaning of utilizing his body. All weapons are handled by the body, and soon the body becomes the weapon. Once, a martial art fervently sought after by warriors of the martial world. He believes that this martial art will enhance Jae-ha's frail physical abilities and the power to deliver fatal blows. He then ordered Jae-ha to show him the result of his training. The flower swung its stems heading toward Jae-ha. Jae-ha flustered, but he was able to jump and hit the stem. He clenched his fist while charging at the flower stem, hearing Chunma telling him that he would be the sword from now on. The flower moved away, so Jae-ha ended up punching the air. He was almost hit by the stem and he realizes that his body is too heavy, which is why he made the wrong move. With the current level of the Moonlight King's technique, he concludes they cannot defeat the Flower Ent. A week ago, Jae-ha rented a training room and started to train himself. Jae-ha was so happy since Chunma mentioned that it would take another month for his recovery to speed up, but then he achieved it less than a month. Chunma then told him that his body was weaker than a pebble, so it's no wonder he's seeing such effectiveness. That time, Jae-ha focused on the trading. Chunma informed him that the Moonlight King's technique consists of 6 forms. 3 initial, and 3 final. Chunma teaches him the first 2 forms, the Remnant's Moon and the Slender Moon. Chunma wants him to learn the Remnant Moon's pattern first, followed by the Slender Moon. As the energy center moves, his body will feel lighter for a moment. But that's only temporary. Still, Chunma hoped that he would keep practicing until his body felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Chunma mentioned back then that there are 2 expressions used to evaluate the people of the world, that is instinctive and talented. Among them, Jae-ha is instinctive. For someone instinctive, Jae-ha learned quickly and knew how to realize things on his own. After an hour of practicing, Jae-ha felt that his legs felt heavier than before. Chunma then said that instinctive typically lacks the talent that follows technique. Jae-ha was upset since he thought he was keeping up quite well. Chunma then told him that his energy flow was twisted, and when the body is bent, it's more uncomfortable to take the correct posture. Don't forget, you must become a sword. he added, and Jae-ha answered yes. Back to the present time, another 4 wolves appeared summoned by the flower ant. Jae-ha was hesitant to attack, but Chinma asked him why. Do you have some extraordinary plan in your head to strike down that guy in one move? He added, but Jae-ha replied that there is no such thing. I may be sweating cold and trembling with fear of death, but this, in its own way, is thrilling. Jae-ha stated. Stems appeared from the ground and Jae-ha then jumped into it and charged at the nearest wolf. He strongly punched it, creating a strong blow. At the same time, the lady started shooting the wolves, trying to hit their core. While Jae-ha was fighting with the wolf, the lady noticed that he really was strong. The flower was about to attack the lady with the stem. She panicked and used her arms to block the attack. Fortunately, Jae-ha cut the stem by punching it hard. If you don't want to die, step back, Jae-ha said to the lady. The lady still had the guts to remind him that he was just a supporter. Several stems heading to them. Jae-ha at the same time admitted that he was really an ordinary supporter and he won't deny it. He suddenly grabbed the lady's wrist and punched the stems using his fist just like a sword. He then threw the lady while saying that he would continue to be an ordinary civilian. The lady rattled, but she was aware that Jae-ha wanted her to stay away from the beasts. After witnessing Jae-ha's strength, she cannot believe anymore that Jae-ha was just an ordinary supporter. Right now, Jae-ha can see the path of the remnant moon, and his body is getting faster. He can also feel his bones becoming stronger. He smiled, claiming that he was enjoying it now. He fought the flower end and the monsters. Seems like he has a sword, but he doesn't. The flower summoned more stems and all the wolves were dead. Have you ever seen such a twisted person? To take pleasure in the signals your body sends in the face of death, Chinma stated. The flower was almost covered with its stems. Chinma smiled and proclaimed that he now saw the way to awaken Jae-ha. At this moment, Jae-ha can't move forward because of the stem, and it's blocking his limit. He immediately jumped away and landed on the ground. Chinma then said, step on the 5 elements imprint step. How long will you pathetically keep running away? Chinma then decided to teach Jae-ha the slender moon. Jae-ha kept running away and he told Chinma that stepping on the 5-element imprint step was not enough. His legs are still heavy. The feeling of being out of sync lingers, but Chinma tells him not to forget that he must become a sword. Jae-ha believes that a person cannot become a sword, and a sword does not run. He proclaimed that it just sleeps in solitude. He charged at the flow end, and Chinma saw a sword energy from him. He then concludes that Jae-ha might have transcended sensation and reached a state of selflessness. Jae-ha then strongly attacked the flower ant, and this time, he was able to hit the face. His punch was so strong, removing the entire face of the flower. Chinma suddenly smiled upon seeing it. He was only going to impart the simple principles of the slender moon. He told Jae-ha to listen to him explaining about the true essence of the slender moon. The wind of cold, and the sky is overcast. Without a hint of blue in the fortress, all the people mourn and say, "O deity, please look upon us poor souls with mercy." But when asked if there is no god, Jae-ha knew that he had declared himself to be a god. Right now, he completely defeated the boss monster, and he was holding its core. Jae-ha then proclaimed that the sword realized it had no eyes. The next day, Jae-ha was admitted to Daehyun Hospital. He was exactly at the VIP room, and the doctor came to give him a word. After saying a short message, the doctor then said that he would come back later. The doctor then left and he received a call from his commander. He informed his commander that there was never an injury to begin with. He was just in the hospital to recover from fatigue before leaving. The commander then asked him if he really killed the boss. As per the commander, he heard from Daehyun that the boss was defeated with Baek Yeseol's help. Baek Yeseol is the granddaughter of the Daehyun group. Jae-ha then concludes that his commander was referring to the lady who was with him during his fight with the boss. Now, he realizes why he was moved to the VIP room of Daehyun Hospital. His commander then said that he was quite lucky as he made a contract with a spirit and instantly took down the boss of the duplex. Even with Baek Yeseol, the commander believes that it was still a situation that required at least a 5-star hero to resolve. Jae-ha then awkwardly laughed and said that dealing with the boss was impossible to do alone. Someone then knocked on the door. Jae-ha then told his commander that he needed to drop the call for now as he thought that it was his doctor who came back. But when the door opened, it turned out that it was a visitor, which is Yeseol. Yeseol brought a present for him. Jae-ha then acts like he doesn't know the lady yet. Yeseol then apologizes to him for not introducing herself. She then sat on the couch while saying that she believes it is more proper to greet Jae-ha in person. Jae-ha also sits beside her. At the same time, Chinma was staring at Yeseol's present, saying that the girl had potential. That is because he saw ginseng, which was an elixir inside the present. Jae-ha was confused about what Chinma said. Chinma then informed him that there was a very necessary elixir inside the present for him. Yeseol opened the present and said that she felt she was credited with taking down the boss, plus Jae-ha saved her life, so she decided to pay him with an elixir. According to Chunma, it will help Jae-ha increase his energy and enhance his physical abilities if he will chew it. Jae-ha was staring at the present Yeseol gave. He then told that lady that it was fine if he didn't receive any presents at all since he was just a civilian after all. Yeseol then changes the topic by asking him if he would like to have a meal with her. At this moment, Chunma senses that Yeseol has something specific to say to Jae-ha. I must decline. It's almost time for the hospital meal. Jae-ha replied. In his language, this is what he calls a sales pitch. The lady then said that she would just request the hospital chef to also send a meal for the guardian. Jae-ha then grabbed one elixir while informing the lady that she needed to request a guardian's meal at least an hour in advance. The lady stood and decided to buy a few rolls of kimbap instead for her to join Jae-ha in eating his meal. If you tell me why you came, I think I can eat more comfortably, Jae-ha said and sighed. The lady then realizes that Jae-ha noticed there's something she needed. She then told him that it wasn't the place to talk about. Still, she decided to open it up. She asked Jae-ha if he was not interested in guilds by any chance. It turned out that the guild of Daehyun wanted to invite Jae-ha to join them. So, you lied. To keep other guilds from hearing about me? Jae-ha asked. And Yeseol then answered yes and said that she had seen how Jae-ha fights. She also believes that her eyes are never wrong, so she was sure Jae-ha would definitely going to be successful. Jae-ha was aware that the Daehyun guild hasn't been able to secure high-ranking heroes despite the group's financial power. Heroes earn enough money just by hunting monsters. They prefer to join famous guilds that operate on the front lines rather than just for money. He was about to refuse the offer, but the lady cut her off and said that she was not asking him to join right away. Besides, she's not even the guild leader yet. Instead, please wait for me for just 3 years. In 3 years, I'll graduate from the military academy and become the guild leader, and then I'll come for you, Appa, she stated. She then bowed down and asked Jae-ha not to forget about her offer. She immediately leaves without adding any more words. Jae-ha just stares at the door, and Chunma then says that he thought Yeseol was a sly fox, but she's actually a bold tiger cub. Indeed, at least I won't forget someone called Beak Yeseol, Jae-ha replied. When the night came, Jae-ha then started eating the elixir Yeseol gave. Chunma told him to focus on absorbing all the energy of the ginseng before it dissipates. Jae-ha continued to swallow it with closed eyes. When he finished one, he then tried to absorb it, and Chunma instructed him not to open his mouth and not let the heat escape. The ginseng creates a flame that wraps the seed inside Jae-ha's body. He feels the fire wrapping around his entire body as if it's going to burn everything he is wearing. The time had passed, and he was really right. His clothes were ripped because of the heat. He felt the cold wind, chilling as if touching his bare skin. He then opened his eyes and realized that his top was removed. Chunma then informed him that the acupoints in his poison meridian had been opened. Stop making a fuss and get dressed, Chunma added. Jae-ha then asked him if he had already undergone a complete transformation. Chunma then told him that he was talking nonsense again. Jae-ha wore his blazer while saying that he meant to say that he had become stronger now. As per Chunma, he can now perform the crescent moon technique and the stepping method more easily than before. Jae-ha then said it was good since he was thinking of leaving the hospital as soon as he opened his eyes. He exited the VIP room and Chunma was clueless about where he was heading. Jae-ha then smiled and replied that he would go to the front line, knowing that that place was teeming with dark attribute monsters. Meanwhile, he was already at the ship heading to the front line. He was standing outside and he tried to extend his hand and felt something. He asked Chunma if it was a sensation magic power. Chunma then said that it was a pure crystal of magic power, and he believed Jae-ha hadn't seen one before. An aura emerges from it while Jae-ha replies that he really hasn't seen one. As per Chunma, it must be visible to Jae-ha now because his energy is circulating through the black and white heart method. At this moment, magic power is flowing in. Jae-ha panicked, but Chunma told him to refine the absorbed magic power like the last time. Since it is a pure magic power, he believes it would be refined properly and will greatly aid Jae-ha's energy. Jae-ha suddenly felt severe pain. He told Chunma that there was something wrong happening. He screamed that the heart method was out of control. The magic power wrapped his body together with lightning. He was suddenly knocked down, and Chunma panicked, asking him to come to his senses. At the same time, the ship was covered with a different aura because of what happened to Jae-ha. Jae-ha was admitted again to an infirmary. Chunma was worried for him and waited for him to regain consciousness. He was waiting for a long until he got annoyed and screamed, scolding Jae-ha to get up quickly. Because of his scream, Jae-ha woke up. He then rose and he was puzzled he was at the Daehyun hospital again. Shinma stares with anger at him, telling him to stop talking nonsense and circulate his energy since there is still unrefined magical power remaining inside Jae-ha. Because he collapsed, the ship heading to the front line had to turn back, and they say this is a central island. Jae-ha was swallowed by a pure mass of magical power he encountered on the ship. Jae-ha was confused since the front lines were a place where he used to come and go without any issues during his time as a special private sergeant. Shinma then said that it must be because of the black and white heart method. And now, Jae-ha has learned a heart method that takes magical power as nourishment for their energy. Jae-ha then started circulating his energy again, and during the process, the wind got stronger. He feels like he is floating underwater and his body is trying to be dominated by the magical power in reverse. He opened his eyes and he saw himself underwater. He closed his eyes again and opened them while raising his upper body. Heavenly demon, what is the world is this? He asked. Does your body feel heavy as if you're drowned in water? Would it be better to say that your body is being swayed by the magical power? Shin asked. According to him, the seed is absorbing magical power beyond Jae-ha's purification limit, which is why Jae-ha's body can't handle it. I've decided. If my body can't endure it, then I'll make it endure, Jae-ha confidently said. Shinma then asked him again to sit quietly and circulate his energy. He was standing in his bed, but a nurse came informing him that it was dangerous for him to get up. The nurse then injected him with a nutrient IV drop and told him that once the infusion was complete, he may be discharged. After injecting him with the drip, the nurse then leaves the room. Shinma then asked him what he was doing, and he answered, "From now on, every hour, minute, and second will be training. I absolutely cannot stay still like this." He continues filling and emptying energy until his body adapts. He was determined to keep at it as long as he could circulate energy. The next day, Shinma was ready to leave the hospital. His body now feels as heavy as a lump of iron, but he believes that walking and talking normally is possible. Meanwhile, he arrived at a company building. Shinma didn't know where he was going, but he told him that he'd have to stay in this company for a while, until the training was over. In short, he has come to find a job. As he entered the recruiting room, he saw a man carrying a heavy thing and was struggling. The thing he was holding was a specialized muscle strength tester, and the recruiter declared that the man was disqualified for not doing it right. The man was annoyed, especially when Jae-ha looked at him. "Hello, madam. I've come in response to your advertisement for a short-term bodyguard for 5 months, Jae-ha said. But the lady recruiter replied that they don't deal with the sick. Surprisingly, Jae-ha carried the tester easily while saying that he just got a bit dizzy from the sunlight. Back then, he never considered this job in the past, but now, he believes he needed it. He raises the tester for a long, and seeing what he did makes the lady dumbfounded. "This should be sufficient, right?" Jae-ha asked. After having a conversation with the recruiter, he then headed to the 5th floor of the building. This company elevator has its logo, which means twin sword. It is one of the 3 private security companies on the central island. There are 4 districts on the central island. Meister produces weapons, Pleasure Quarter handles entertainment, and the market deals with daily necessities and build for accommodation. Twin Sword's main duty is to guard Meister and build. As he arrived at the 5th floor, a huge man appeared and said, "It's been a while since we had a distinguished guest who has contracted with a spirit." It turned out that this huge guy was the Twin Sword Company's boss. The boss then lets Jae-ha enter his office, and he believes that Jae-ha came to inquire about a security position. Jae-ha then said yes and added that he would like to work for about 4 to 5 months if possible. Your face looks familiar. What is your rating?" the boss asked. As per Shinma, due to the limitations of his energy, he guesses he could exert the strength of about 1 or 2 stars. Upon hearing it, Jae-ha then told the boss that he could consider his rating between 1 and 2 stars. The boss then proclaimed that it sounded like Jae-ha could muster the strength of a mercenary when necessary. According to the boss, security work is up to 5 months. Since Jae-ha contracted with a spirit, he will make sure Jae-ha's pay is no less than that of a regular employee. However, the security work might end midway, and the announcement was to fill the position until the existing security personnel recover. Jae-ha then responded that he would keep it in mind. Jae-ha then asked if room and board were provided. The boss then said that there was a vacant share house in build. Jae-ha can eat there, and if necessary, he can use the underground cafeteria. The boss handed the contract to Jae-ha and said that they both agreed to fill the time without any issues and then depart. Jae-ha was about to grab the contract, but the boss pulled it again and asked, before that, any interest in becoming a full-time employee. Jae-ha pulled the contract and confidently replied that he didn't have any interest at all. The boss seemed to be disappointed with his answer, as he believed that their twin swords' prestige would surely rise if a hero were to join their company full-time. At this moment, he was holding a badge informing Jae-ha that this badge would be given to Twin Swords Reserve security officers. He handed it to Jae-ha and said that he was hoping Jae-ha would have an enjoyable time in their company even if it's brief. Meanwhile, Jae-ha leaves the building. He was holding the badge, and since he already found a job, he believed it was now the time for him to get equipped with weapons. He asked Chunma's opinion, but Chunma only told him to do as he pleased. He went to a weapons store nearby. He remembered that heroes usually use two types of weapons, a man and a secondary. The main weapon is mostly a gun. Heroes usually borrow the power of spirits in the form of blessings, and they can fire that special skill condensed into bullets. Do we really need to make them into bullets? Chunma asked, and Jae-ha replied that it is advantageous in terms of range, and it's effective against large monsters or hordes of monsters. He also believes that it plays a part that they're easy to learn and convenient to use. Chunma then said that it was a pity to use weapons that are easy to learn and simple to operate. For him, it means that a user can do is to just roll over. Isn't it cool? I'd like to have such a weapon too, Jae-ha said. But then, Chunma stated that he had decided that Jae-ha's main weapon would be a sword and his secondary would be his fists. Surprisingly, Jae-ha agreed. Chunma then asked if he was not disappointed, and he then answered that being able to have such concerns is all thanks to Chunma. Jae-ha walked at the Meister Street. In this place, someone was pounding something, and seemed like there were tears dropped on the ground. It creates a noise that was heard by Jae-ha. Jae-ha then asked Chunma if he heard it, but Chunma replied that he didn't sense anything unusual. Jae-ha continues walking. For him, the sound was faint, but he was sure he heard it. He knew that it was the sound of a metal clashing against metal. Meister Street has been home to numerous blacksmiths for generations. Among them, the sound of metal and the swords from the Du family's prestigious house were the most renowned. However, they did not make swords for just one, especially the Dogong family, who had made a pact with the spirit. The swords were crafted by the 7th generation blacksmith. Dogong Myeong were so famous that even a 10-star hero could not obtain one. At this moment, it was Dojing Myeong who pounded a metal. He then heard someone behind him calling his attention. Of course, it was Jae-ha, since Jae-ha followed the noise. Jae-ha then asked Myeong if he could see the sword, but Myeong instantly told him to leave, saying that he did not welcome uninvited guests. He continued what he was doing not until Jae-ha asked if the thing he was pounding was a mineral black wood. You know of black wood? Myeong asked. He was touching the black wood and pointed it at Jae-ha, then asked, why does the artifact cry out only when you arrive? But then, Jae-ha was silent, as he had never heard that black wood cries. He then told the blacksmith that he was honestly not sure what he meant to say. Do you not hear the sound? The blacksmith asked. As per Jae-ha, once, while living as part of an exploration team, he had the chance to touch black wood, but he had never heard the sound of a mineral. The blacksmith then said that if it's crying out unilaterally, it can't be resonance, nor is it likely that an artist chooses its owner. Jae-ha was staring at the swords inside the blacksmith's shop. He suddenly grabbed one, and Chunma at the same time was telling him that the blacksmith was a cut above him. Jae-ha doesn't understand what Chunma said. Chunma then explained that it means the blacksmith is superior Jae-ha, hearing the sounds of an artifact that Jae-ha cannot. He suggested Jae-ha buy a sword from a person, someone like Myeong. Jae-ha checked one of the swords Myeong made, but then he saw that it was broken. However, if Chunma says is true, he thinks that it is better for him to ask Myeong to make a sword for him. Myeong's son suddenly came and was surprised to see a guest. Since he saw that Jae-ha was holding the sword his father made, he informed Jae-ha that the sword was not for sale since it was broken. Myeong continued what he was doing while his son grabbed the broken sword from Jae-ha and offered to tell him if he needed a sword so he could speak to his father. Show him out. He's not a guest, Myeong said. His son then laughed while inviting Jae-ha to have their conversation outside. They went outside the shop of Myeong, and the blacksmith's son then informed Jae-ha that his name was Uncheol, the 8th generation elder grandson of Dogong Daemili's prestigious house. Nice meeting you, he said while extending his hand to shake hands with Jae-ha. Jae-ha then introduced his name and asked him one more time if he mentioned the Dogong family's prestigious house. Then, he flinched when he got an idea who that man in the room wielding the black wood. As per Uncheol, it was his father, Dogong Myeon, the master blacksmith of the 7th generation of the Dogong family's prestigious house. Jae-ha then remembered that the greatest master on Meister Street was born with innate talent due to a contract with the Spirit of Flames. Is that really Dogong Myeong? He asked in disbelief. At this time, Myeong exited his shop and instantly saw Jae-ha. He then told Jae-ha to leave, and he believes Jae-ha wasn't from around this street. Jae-ha then showed his security badge while informing Myeong that he had come to stay on this street as a reserve guard for Twin Sword due to some circumstances. Don't make me say it twice, go away, Myeong said. If you happen to need a sword made, please let us know. Uncheol said. Would you accept the order, then? Jae-ha asked. Myung was still thinking and he remembered Jae-ha mentioned the twin sword. Uncheol then said that if his father agrees, it's not just about the money. Since Myung can't still decide, Jae-ha decided to just leave for now. Uncheol sent him outside and waved goodbye to him. Jae-ha believes that touching a master's sword even once would surely be a great help to his senses. But he believes it's probably be difficult. The next day, he went to the 5th floor of the Twin Sword Company to start his first day of work. But as he entered, he saw someone making him dumbfounded. It turned out that Dogong Myung came and had a conversation with his boss. Jae-ha, have you already made an impression on Messeter? The boss asked. But then, Jae-ha doesn't know what he means to say. And according to the boss, Dogong Myung wants to hire Jae-ha as a personal guard for his shop. Myung stood and told Jae-ha that he would be responsible for guarding both him and his shop from now on. But you sent me away yesterday. What's the sudden reason for this? Jae-ha asked. Myung then casually replied that he was scared to walk to the shop alone. Jae-ha was still confused, but Myung told him not to make him repeat himself, and he also believed that Jae-ha was scared to go to the shop alone. The boss then told Jae-ha that he just needed to stand guard in the shop for exactly 12 hours each day, then leave right after. Birds of a feather flock together, they say. Right now, you and that guy are exactly that. Chinme suddenly uttered while staring at Myung. Jae-ha then stared at his belly and asked Chinme what he was talking about. It's related to yesterday when you couldn't hear the sound of the black wood. He may be a step above you, but what he really needs is inside you. If you stay quietly by his side, it will help sharpen your senses. Chinme replied. Myung at the same time clears his throat and asks Jae-ha if he won't come with him. Chinme then told Jae-ha to go and learn all he could from Myung. Jae-ha wasn't sure what Chinme meant to say, but he believed it was supposed to be a help for his training to become stronger. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you wish to have another part of this recap, please give us at least 2,000 likes. Please don't forget to comment and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Until next time.